thank you so much for being here, both of you. You are the filmmaker, and you from an organization. You're going to tell us more, but please just give us some introduction, a few words of introduction, and maybe why, you know, what's the reason? Why did you decide to go to Tanzania and make that movie? What's your connection?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming this evening. It's really wonderful to know that people do care about this issue. I think there is an incredible blind spot about this issue, and we need to start addressing it because it's not just about Africa, it's about us too, and Natasha's going to talk more about that. I made the film because I'm a human rights filmmaker. I've wanted to make a film about this topic for decades, and I finally decided in 2010 that I had to find a way to tell the story that would make it more accessible to people because it's such a tough topic. And so I had a Google alert from 2010, and every day I got information and stories about FGM, and finally in January of 2015, I found this story about the safe house and about the children who were running away. And I just knew that was a story that I had to tell. And I went off to Tanzania and met Roby, and it all went from there. That's the film you now see on the screen. And I made the film specifically because when I read about the safe house and those children, I realized that their voices have never, ever been heard. We have talked to the communities, to the survivors, we have lots of organizations, but the children themselves, when they find out what's going to happen to them, they do not want to go through it, and their voices were never heard. And this is my gift to them because they are so happy that their voices are being heard, and I'm so honored to have been their trusted messenger.
No, it's and they have a lot to say. They're teaching us so much. That's why I feel when I watch the movie, and you feel everything is reversed. The adults lie, you know, have a misconception, and the children are educating them. And I can't. When I was watching it, I was really feeling. I have a lot of admiration for them because they. And also so brave because they have to fight and they have to divorce from their family. It must be such a hard thing, such a heartbreaking thing. And they're so young and they're acting with so much responsibility. And yes.
You know, I think you hit the nail on the head. They are acting incredibly brave. And I think the lesson that these children have to teach us is that, you know, what I always think is that children are not the leaders of tomorrow. They are the leaders of today. And these girls in that film prove that they are the leaders of today. And we just have to listen to them and pay attention to them. And, you know, I know that, if I may just say, I know a lot of people always ask me what happened to the girls in the film. Does anybody want to know?
Of course. Everybody.
Rhetorical question. Well, there's good news and bad news. The good news is that most of the girls, as far as I know, are perfectly fine and are standing strong. But unfortunately, as it doesn't come as a surprise, that Flora succumbed to the demands of her parents, who just wouldn't give up. And 2 months ago, during the last cutting season, Flora allowed herself to be cut. And the real tragedy of that is that the police went to arrest her parents, and her parents ran away, and now Flora's living with an uncle and going to school, but she's been cut and she's still not with her family. And it just proves, really, it shows the incredible, tragic story where these girls have to make a choice that no child should ever have to make. Choose between themselves and their families.
I know, yeah. There's also, what's the name of the woman who was running the safe house? I think also she deserves being our admiration too, and she's inspired. She's becoming a mother to many of those girls, I think, and a teacher, and she's incredible. Yeah.
She is amazing, and she empowers them from the first day they get to the safe house until the day they leave. She empowers them absolutely incredible. incredibly. I think I want to bring Natasha, you into this, because it's not just an issue in Africa. A lot of people say, oh, well, that happens over there. No, it's an issue in Africa. It's an issue in the Middle East. It's an issue in Russia. It's an issue in parts of South America. And it's an issue right here in the USA, right? Yeah. Do you want to?
Yes, please tell us more, Natasha. Can you give a quick introduction and yes, tell us.
So quickly, my name is Natasha Johnson. I'm an attorney and advocate, artist, and a bunch of other things which don't matter right now. But I think the reason why this conversation is so important is because.
Okay, let's switch. I think this one.
The reason why this conversation is so important is because the place where we talk about these young women having all of these nuances that have to decide between themselves and their families is the same crux that exists here in the United States. There are about 200,000 women and girls here in the U.S. impacted by FGMC. 65,000 of them are here in the New York, New Jersey metropolitan area. And here in New York, FGMC and vacation cutting is illegal, and that's just about it. We don't have safe houses, we don't have coordinated police officers, we don't have a Roby, we don't have doctors who are pledged and working and coordinated and understand what the nuances are of FGMC. And so because of that, we have young women who are still very much at the same brink of having to be forced or coerced or highly influenced to potentially be cut here in the New York metropolitan area, yet we don't have those resources. So the question will always be for them right now, because it's illegal here, that if they were to move forward, the potentiality would be for their parents to be separated from them, for them to potentially be in foster care, for their parents to be arrested and or to potentially be deported. So we have a lot of work to do here, because the distinction is that most folks think, oh, this is an African issue, it's super backwards, it's super antiquated, but we get that they've moved forward in a way that the U.S. never has. So there's a lot of work that we need to do and a lot of lessons that we can learn.
Thank you so much. And yes, it's incredible that you bring us in Africa and we are in a way aware of it more. We have more information in a way that what you just told us, that's so close from us to in America and even in New York. So
there are our neighbors, there are friends, there are sisters, there are colleagues, there are students, they may be us. And so the reality is that it's our business, right? It's a human rights issue. It's not just a women's issue or a girl's issue or an African issue. This is a human issue that we all can be vested and involved in making a difference about.
Thank you. I would like to give the opportunity to the public to ask questions. You wanted to add something, Julie?
I would love the audience to ask questions,
Yeah.
but to your point about it's all our issues. So, I'm jinxed on this.
They're a bit tired. The mic we use all week. And
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
So,
Try this one.
Mercury's in retrograde. So.
yeah, you see? That's very funny. So yeah, let's get a couple questions from the audience would be great, but what I do at every screening is that I really think it is our issue, FGM, and I like everyone to take one of these signs, and then we'll, before we finish, and then move close together, and I take a photo and I post it on Twitter to show that people understand this is not just an issue over there. These girls represent girls all over the world who do not want to be harmed in this way.
Yes.
Yes, we'll be more than happy to do that. Question? Yes.
It's all I don't need it.
Your project. Okay.
How common is this in the American Somali community, and what's being done about it?
Thank you for that question.
So most Somali communities, there are a good number of Somali communities that heavily practice FGM, and they normally practice type 3. The distinction though is, I'm sorry?
Could you define type 3?
Infibulation, and infibulation is the sewing together of either the labia minora and or the labia majora. The distinction though is that there are not a good number of resources available, not just to the Somali community, to anyone here in the United States that's experiencing FGM. So we don't have a lot of concrete numbers on a day-to-day, the same way we would have about other issues, for instance, like domestic violence or human trafficking or rape or sexual assault. So really, the goal for us here is that now that you have this information and you're charged with it, is to go out and now be ambassadors of this issue, so that the conversations get to be elevated in the places where those differences can be made, so that we can start to get those numbers and actually do more qualitative work around giving them the resources that they need.
Thank you. Yes, over there.
Brilliant film on all levels. How long did it take you to make from the moment you started shooting till you finished editing?
Too long.
A couple of years?
Yeah, about 2.5 years.
Yes.
Yeah, two and a
Okay.
half years. You know, the biggest challenge was getting the funding, which we never did quite get. We've got a lot of our own money in it, which we probably never going to recover. But the other really big challenge was that the whole film is in Swahili, right? So it's not mediated. There's no narration. There's just a few little, you know, a little bits of information to guide you along the way. And we had like 4 binders this big of translation, and my editor spent months and months editing the film to make it into a cohesive whole. And I think, you know, the biggest compliment I've received about the film was in Tanzania itself when I showed it there to the community, and several people were overheard saying that they thought it was a fictionalized movie. They thought everybody in the movie was an actor because it flows so well, right? And that's the biggest compliment to me. I thought, that's amazing. What a great thing that they think it's fiction. It's not real. So that's what's the biggest challenge, is dealing with all the Swahili and sending it back to Tanzania and Kenya and getting translators to retranslate it and look at it again. And if I may, I'll just tell you the famous story of the missing penis.
Okay.
The beginning of the film, if you remember, he talks about the difference between FGM and male circumcision, and that if you did to girls what you do, if you did to boys what you do to girls, you'd be cutting off the head of their penis. Well, we went through months and months and months of this, and I sent it back to Kenya, and I sent it to Tanzania, and I had a translator in Toronto, and nobody spotted it. And at the last minute, somebody said, "No, you never says the word penis." And I said, "What do you mean you say the word penis?" It was like a complete, like, you know, it was such an important thing because it sets up what it is, right? It sets up what's at stake right at the beginning of the film. And so somehow, you know, the editor had one of 2 small mistakes that it wasn't her fault, it just was a confusion. Anyway, we spent another few days finding the missing penis, and there it is in the film. So the film is actually word perfect in Swahili. You know, we have the Swahili version, and all we do for the Swahili version is remove the English subtitles and put in those little headers in Swahili. Otherwise, it's Swahili audiences can completely get it, understand it, and obviously are quite moved by it and think it's the real movie.
First of all, thank you for a truly beautiful and heart-wrenching film. I think you answered this, but I have trouble hearing. Are Flora and Roby safe? And, no, I forgot the other thing I was gonna ask, so that's it.
Well, the microphone's not working that well. Flora is not safe. You know, Flora did give in to mutilation, but she is still going to school, so that's the bright news. And the other news is that Flora has said that she will never ever cut her own daughter, and that's where the hope is. Because although Roby says that, you know, 99% of the girls in the film and that she deals with aren't cut, I don't have that same conviction, because she goes and visits them and tries to look after them, but you just don't know. But my hope is that she has empowered those girls, and those girls are going to be the leaders, not just today, but the leaders of tomorrow, right? Those 2 girls at the end of the film in that classroom. Those girls, that was their first day of school, and somebody mentioned, you know, do you ladies, you girls want to talk to the class and tell them about FGM? I said, sure. That was at 8 o'clock the night before. The next morning, those girls walked into that classroom, hand in hand, and gave a performance of a lifetime, like a freaking TED Talk. You know, seriously, no practicing, no rehearsing. They just went in there like a couple of showgirls. It was really amazing. So that's where the hope is. As for Roby, Roby's safe house was taken away by a nasty bishop who doesn't believe in saving girls from FGM. That's the bad news. The good news is that Roby is the most charismatic human rights activist I have met in a long career of human rights filmmaking. And she started 2 new safe houses. She started her own charity, and she's moving forward saving girls.
How long ago was this?
We did the filming at the end of 2016, beginning of 2017, so 2 years ago was the filming. But, you know, Roby continues, and she's doing incredible work. So we have to go, right? So we have to take our photo.
That's what I was saying. I'm really sorry because I had more questions to ask you. We can't keep going. Yes, please. So where should we do this? Here.
No, everyone
everybody.
stand up and
Okay.
take your sign,
Oh,
and then
okay.
just move a little bit into the middle so you're together.
I have one right here.
Does anyone need a sign?
I don't have one. We have more, yeah. There you go.
Wouldn't it be easier for us to sit on the stage and you take it from the audience?
Yeah, if you want, we can.
Well, I'm looking down at everybody. It's like good this way.
Okay, you decide.
I have to see how, it's pretty dark, but.
Do you want me to move the light towards us?
Hang on a second, that might be good too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Or if we
let's
move
do
on the
that.
stage,
Let's
then
move
wait.
the
If we
light
went
over.
on the stage, then.
No, because, you know, you're all on a hill a little bit like that, so I actually see you all.
yeah.
So the lovely gentleman at the back that I met last night, come forward. And remember the old rule, if you can't see me, I can't see you.
Oh, right.
Yeah, me too.
Everyone look here. Okay, let's try it on the stage.